Alright, I'm over here at the grinder and getting ready to start grinding these bevels. And this is the guide that I use. This is made of hardened O1 steel that hasn't been drawn out too much. It's really pretty hard. And again, what it does is just keeps my plunge cuts even on each side. And even after as many knives as I have ground in my life, I still don't like to try to freehand and get it dead even. It's a time saver, and it produces consistent results. So even if you're an old hand at this, you probably would benefit from using such a thing. And a lot of the old guys still use something like this. This is a pretty aggressive ceramic 80 grit belt, and it removes the metal rather quickly, which is the whole point. We're just hogging this steel off of here, and then we'll move up to progressively finer grits till we get up to where we want to heat treat the knife. Now, before I start grinding this raw corner, one important thing that I do is I'll turn the knife. I grind in this direction. But if I started grinding just like this, I'm going to shear a lot of these grains off the belt and take a lot of the life out of this belt. So what I do first is I just make a small little relief bevel. I'll turn the knife over and just a couple of swipes in that direction, and I just put a little bevel and break that hard corner. That way when I introduce it into the belt this way, I don't get that spray of grit that, again, that grit belongs on the belt doing its work, not floating around in the air. So I'm going to do that first. Now, this makes a little bit of dust, not so much airborne dust. It pretty much falls in a pile down here at my feet. And but I like to get up on my work, and I've got the camera in here pretty tight. And I'm going to move it back a little bit, and I'll just show you a few steps of how I grind, and it's pretty self-explanatory. The key thing is your angle that you present this to. You have a finish line here in your scribe. You also have a finish line up here in the edge. And what you want to do is get that angle to where you kind of arrive at both points at about the same time. That way you're not grinding a lot of facets trying to even it out. So experience, again, will teach you the proper angle, and it depends on the width of your blade. But you'll get a feel for it. But it's going to be an angle just about like that, just a few degrees. And you'll just do progressive passes. You keep everything straight. I've got a little water tank over here at my left that I can reach over and dunk this knife in. Because it's going to get hot, and when it's hot in your hands, you change your grip, and you may make a mistake. So it's important to dunk this steel on any knife pretty often. It should always be comfortable in your hands. And you take your time, and you just work it. As again, we're just going to be able to barely see these scribe lines when we go into heat treatment. And then we'll take them off on the regrind. This won't take long. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I will show you shots of me grinding this, and then we'll move into something else. Now that is about all the relief cut that I provide, but that is enough to preserve the grit that's on that belt. I just use my tool rest here as a way to steady my hand. You just get it up in there, and I track the belt to where it is even on my platen. So that's all we're doing, and we just watch our progress up the blade while we're watching our progress into the blade. And again, we just try to time everything to where you get to both places at around the same time. You want the belt's travel to always be at as much of a right angle to the edge as you can. So that's why when I pull it this way, I kind of turn the blade because of that radius. If I kept it straight, I'm going to end up with a very thick point. So you just turn that up to where you're at a right angle again, and then back. And you'll just get into a rhythm with it. See, I'm maintaining a flat, and that's important. You get a flat started, you stick with it. You don't try to change your angle and get a bunch of facets on there. It just makes more work for you. This belt's making short work of this knife. You're just watching your plunge cut. I'm grinding at a very slow speed right now for a couple reasons. It's not as noisy. I can talk and show you what I'm doing. And it doesn't generate a lot of heat. I haven't had to dunk this yet. I'm getting ready to move the camera out of the way, increase my belt speed to get this done. And at that point, I'll put on a respirator because that will make a little bit of airborne dust. The particles will actually come all the way around the belt and kind of get airborne. You don't want to breathe that stuff. So I'm going to move the camera out of my way and speed up my belt, get this done, and I'll show this to you after we've got it roughed around. Okay, it's rough ground. This is an 80 grit silicon carbide finish. I stepped up to that from that 80 grit ceramic, really aggressive belt. And we can remove our guide now because we have a good defined plunge cut. And that is going to serve as a stopping point for subsequent finer grits all the way up to 400 before we go into heat treatment. We have a place to stop at now. You just have to be careful, use a light touch, and not let your belt ride over that shoulder and preserve the sharpness that you see there in your definition. And we've let the bevel creep up to we're just teasing this edge up here. We've kind of preserved full thickness here. And then we taper nicely up to the point, and then over here you can still see some layout line on either side. And when we take this up to 400 grit, you'll still be able to barely see those layout lines, but these 80 grit scratches will be gone. Then we go into the furnace for heat treatment, and I'll show you that. I'll show you how we foil wrap these blades, and then I'll show you pulling them out and doing the oil quench, and then we'll take them out of the foil, and we'll go into the draw, and then it's finishing this knife. This will happen pretty quickly. At this point, I'm going to make my rough scales, and I'll show you how I lay them out. And since I'm not using a guard for the scale to stop against, we'll need a finished edge on this side and then a finished edge back here before we ever glue these on, since you can't get in there and do any finishing after that. So we'll play around with those, and I'll just show you the different steps. We're almost to the point where we're ready to go into the furnace. And then it starts happening pretty quickly. But the whole knife, start to finish, to this point right now, I've got, well, I had to design it as I went. So right now, about 3 hours. But if I just grabbed a pattern and started making this knife, we'd be at about the 1 hour point right now. So not bad.